wanting to launch about $100 to $200 million fund. These guys are all twice my age. I'm in my 20s. They're all in their 40s or 50s. Very successful entrepreneurs. And these guys all drive, sports cars. They have private jets. I mean, these are very successful entrepreneurs. I show up. It was pretty obvious in the first 3 minutes. We, meaning them three, are going to do a fund. Bridger is not included. Us three are going to do this fund. Bridger, I don't even know why you invited Bridger to this meeting. It was, I'm blatantly obvious. And I was like, right. It makes sense. I'm like, young, why would they invite me? And so I'm just sitting there and they're talking about their fund that they're going to launch. So I'm just sitting there, in this nice boardroom, we're just talking. And I have this moment of courage. And I'm like, screw it. I'm going to try something here. And so I raise my hand. I'm like, hey, real quick, as you guys are going on, do you guys plan on running an American or European waterfall? Are you guys going to do a 3C1, 3C5, or 3C7 fund? Are you going to do a, Reg D 506B, 506C? You're going to do a Reg A Plus fund, Reg CF fund? What kind of stuff are you guys going to do for your fund? And they all went quiet. And they're like, go up to the whiteboard. Tell us what do you mean? What's a European or American waterfall? I was like, oh, you guys don't know this? And I went up to the whiteboard. I started to explain to them what's an American versus European waterfall. What's a pref, catch-up carried interest, 3C1, 3C5, all these technical terms for funds that are relatively simple, by the way. If you learned them, you could learn them in an hour or two. Right. They're not that hard, but they didn't know them. Yeah. In about 7 minutes, my clout in the room went from 0, nothing, dirt, lower than dirt, to they wanted me to be an equal partner in their fund with them.
Wow.
A 25% owner, 25, 25, 25.
Right.
Because I knew something. I was a level 10 in an area category that they had no clue about.
Right.
And I was able to show that expertise to them. They wanted to partner with me. And anyways, I left that meeting. That fund never actually launched. Those partners, they were all fighting and ended up not launching. But the point remained true. They wanted me to be an equal partner with them in that opportunity. And so back to, they always say it's not the how, it's the who, right? The who is important. And there's a lot of introspection. If you're sitting there, and I do this a lot, how do I increase my who? Well, I need to become a better who. I need to become a person of value that they want to partner with and talk to. And I do this all the time. If I called up Elon Musk right now, he wouldn't partner with me. I provide nothing to that guy. But maybe in 10 years, maybe in 10 years I could partner, or Jeff Bezos or whatever person, put X person on the map. Can I sharpen and be, they're like a level 100. Could I be to that level?
Right. That's such a good way to break it down. And so you mentioned the 3 different roles in the fund typically, and this could be an entire department or one individual fundraising or whatever the case may be. Could we talk about 1 or 2 of those roles, and in that specific role, what the core skill sets that people could become really good at, become a level 10 so they can interface with these other level 10s and then come together and knock things out of the park?
Yeah, the 3 roles again are what I call them: expert investor, fund manager, and capital raiser. Again, 1 person or 20 person can do that, but it's the role that's hand. So the first one, expert investor. This person is really, really good at investing or buying whatever. They've traded options in their basement for 20 years and they're just crazy at it. Or they've done real estate for the last 8 years and they're just so good at looking at real estate. Generally speaking, though, that person has no clue how to run a fund. And a lot of times they have no clue how to raise capital. They're just really, really good at they're really, really good at running HVAC companies. They're just good at it. They just know how to do HVAC companies, but they have no clue how to scale that or buy or run a fund or anything else, right? So the next tier, fund manager, that group that's what I'm really good at. How to structure a fund. What's the compliance? What's the mechanics of the fund? That's internal audit, accounting, legal, compliance, all that kind of stuff to actually function or run a fund. That's what I'm very good at. That's what we teach on a lot of our courses. We teach a lot about that. The final one is capital raising. There are people out there. There's a guy that called me up this is like 3 years ago. He's like, Bridger, hey, he's a guy, he goes to every networking event. He goes to every charity. One of those people that they just always are at everything. They're just natural, born salespeople. They're just, you know what I mean? Those people are just good at it. This is this guy. Yep. He calls me up. He's like, Bridger, I have 2 billionaires that just love me to death. We're like best friends. They want to invest in one of my deals, not somebody else's, but something that's mine. Bridger, do you think I could partner with you and be a part of your fund? And I was like, you got 2 billionaires that want to like put money in? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, saddle up, partner. Let's do it. Like, let's go. So there are people that are natural born salespeople that just, they've done it for a decade, right? They've gone to they just know people. And so, different skill sets, right? You bring those people together. Does that help answer that question?
That does. And one thing to iterate on that conversation, a lot in the real estate space, right? Like you mentioned Pace Morby. One of the biggest things in the sub 2 group, which I'm a part of, is squat up, right? Like find someone who can bring private capital, either find a deal or find someone like a wholesaler who can find really good deals, and then find someone who's an operator who can actually operate it. So after we take it down, it's not a problem now. Is there a space in the fund world where you could be that person who puts all these together, even though you're not an expert at deal finding, you're not an expert at fund management, you're not an expert on like the operations of a fund and things of that nature? Is there a world where that makes sense to start doing that and to get your toes wet while you build that networking skill set or whatever the case may be?
That's a skill in itself, right? I would call that under the fund management bucket. I would still show expertise in one of those areas a little bit, but then you're asking for help and bringing people together. But 100%, yeah. Now, again, why would those people want to partner with you though? Because you would show some type of expertise in an area that would help them. It's always mutual. It's always got to be mutual, right?
Right.
Otherwise, they'll just say, "Oh, we don't need Bridger anymore. Kick him out, and we'll all just do it together." So you got to show that value in some way, and it could be any of those categories.
Yeah, for sure. And then getting the trust to get someone to work with you. And I know you said, you want to become that level 10 person, but as we say, business moves at the speed of trust. How do you, as a young investor, and previously when you didn't have that experience, how do you build trust and network and things of that nature? Do you have any recommendation, whether it be frameworks, books, anything of that nature there?
Well, I'll say this. It's not, you don't do it overnight.
Right.
It's a hard answer, but it's a lifetime.
Yeah.
That's the true answer. Why would you trust somebody? Because they've shown a pattern over a lifetime of someone who I can trust.
Right. Right. And then,
so, speed to trust now, how do you demonstrate that? I think it's by showing excellence and in all areas of life, and the level of standards that you live yourself by. A standard that I hold I'm getting more granular for investments that I make. If I'm going to invest in your thing, you have to have third-party audits done every year.
Okay. You
have to have a third-party administrator on your fund. If you don't know what those two terms mean, I'm not investing.
Right.
So, and we pay every year, we pay tens of thousands of dollars to outside firms to come and audit us. We bring it, people hate audits, right? We invite them to come audit us every year to prove that we're honest, right? Like that's what we do for our funds.
Right.
That's one way to build, trust in something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who you are and how you demonstrate the products you push, the way you run your business, your company, how you hold yourself, how you hold your family. It's not a, there's no magic wand, right? It is who you are, right? Yeah. Down to the core. And I'm a big believer when looking at others, and I think people do this the same with myself. I look at, I like to date partners before I get married. Just like, we're going to date for a little bit. Let's date things out. Let's see how we work together. Let's see, is there negative things that come up? Do you have a bad reputation? It's funny in such a world that's on social media and online. I had a great mentor tell me this. He goes, you'd be surprised how quickly word of mouth spreads.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh. And he goes, don't just think word of mouth spreads faster actually today than ever. What is the brand you have around you? What do people say behind your back? And what would influence that for good or bad?
Right.
It's not a simple answer. I don't know. What would you say that to David?
Yeah. Well, as you said, transparency is a big thing, right? Personally, what I like to do is lead with competency. So that goes to your point of becoming a level 10. That's the thing that when you can come with some form of competency that you're better at than whoever you're talking to, then that's like one of the fastest ways to get to trust, right? When they see that. One thing I do have question that I want to ask you about when you're launching things, you mentioned like a special purpose vehicle, right? It's something that some people can utilize before they launch a full fund. Would that be something that you could use in this phase where, like what you did, you raised, tens of thousands of dollars for your first deal. Do you feel like that's a way to start building that trust and build that track record initially? Or do you think you still need to go and you still need to you need to cut your teeth doing sales, or whether it be fundraising?
No, 100%. We're actually launching a new product in the next few weeks called for what's called a single asset fund.
Okay.
So some people call it syndication, special purpose vehicle. The technical term is actually single asset fund.
Okay.
You're doing one asset. So you're buying one property and you're pooling money together for that one business or one property. Mm-hmm. That is I tell most people that is the best way to build a track record. Right. You mentioned earlier, it's biblical, right? If you're a good steward over one, a small amount, you'll be given more and be a steward over great things. So can you show and can you demonstrate being good, number one, with your own money? Are you a good money manager of just your own money, your own family office, like we mentioned earlier? Mm-hmm. Second, are you a good manager of maybe a small group? And that would be a single asset fund. You're doing one deal. Maybe you raised a few $100,000 from family and friends. Mm-hmm. How did that go? Right. Okay, great. That went well. Now let's try to do multiple assets at the same time. We're going to buy 3 or 4 deals together in a more of a bigger fund. And that would be the progression that most people go on to build that trust. And people go, oh man, David, yeah, it looks like he did really good with his own money. Mm-hmm. Then he did good with other people's, a little bit of money. And now he's doing good with like a bigger group of money. Yeah, I'm going to give that guy money. Right. Because he's demonstrated over a few years that he's a good manager of capital. And he's got audits. He's got third-party administration to prove that those numbers are accurate and what he's telling me is correct.
Right. Okay, so that transparency, also getting the reps and showing that you can do those successfully, that's another way to build that trust initially. But one other thing I want to ask about risk, right? So a lot of people here, I know that that's what's screaming in the back of their head. We don't know what direction the economy is going to go in. I mean, we can guess, but we really don't know. How do you, with Fund Launch and with your personal experience, how do you look at risk, and how would you expect, or how would you suggest people who are considering launching a fund to look at that, who are early in their days doing it?
Yeah, we run everyone through a framework. We call it our risk control matrix. There's 2 types of risks. There's risks you can control, and there's risks you can't control. Mm-hmm. Both are important. And so what we like to do, let's take HVAC. You mentioned this earlier, an HVAC company. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what are risks that you can control in that company? Well, I can control my payroll, my overhead, how much I'm going to pay drivers, my marketing. There's a lot of things that I can control, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to put on all things I can control. Now, what can I not control? Mm-hmm. War, like a tariff, economic war. I can't, maybe a lot of my interest rates from the Federal Reserve, stuff like that. So I write all these things down. So we write them all down on a list. Then what we do next is we say, how sensitive are we to those risks? Mm-hmm. And we'll isolate one at a time. So let me go broad, just so this will apply to everybody. So if interest rates go up 1 percentage point, I'm going to run a little financial model on my Excel sheet of, okay, what does that do to my returns? Are they very, does it kill my business, or is it just kind of the same? Right. How sensitive is, and if rates dropped a full percentage point, does that make my business thrive? Or is it just kind of the same as well? And then I'll isolate that. I'll see what's my base case, best case, and worst case scenario, isolating that variable, all things being equal. And then I'll go back to, okay, so what if a risk that I can control? What if, I can't hire anybody? Like everyone quits, right? My competitor comes and hires everybody, right? Right. I can control that, but it's a risk, right? Right. How would that affect my, how sensitive I am to that as a base, best, and worst case scenario? For like a real estate fund, what if rent roll, rents go down or rents go up? Or what if vacancies, right? How sensitive am I to those changes? So we talk a lot about risk. You can't, most of the time you can't, eliminate risk, you just mitigate risk. And so how do I mitigate risk in this offering? And so what I do is I run through this whole matrix of how sensitive am I to all these risks. I then boil it down to, okay, we've got an investment opportunity here. We're going to go buy 10 HVAC companies. Number one, actually be honest with yourself. Right. You might run through that and go, crap. There's not a lot of ways we can win in this. Like this actually isn't that good of a deal. Yeah, there's one chance we could win it, but like it's not in our favor. Maybe let's wait for the next deal. right?
Right.
Now you might boil it down though and say, no, we've got a lot of alpha or asymmetrical risk here. Let me describe what that means for a second. This is what we are searching for from that whole model. As a fund manager, you're trying to find asymmetrical risk, which is a financial term. It's pretty simple. You've probably heard of high risk, high reward, low risk, low reward, right? Asymmetrical risk is when you can find something with relatively low risk for high reward. That's what's called asymmetrical risk reward.
Right.
Now, some people say, well, that's impossible. I was with Ray Dalio just a few months ago, one of the best hedge fund managers of all time. He goes, that's what we do 24/7. We were at the Greenwich Economic Forum together. He's like, we found that if we find 10 to 15 uncorrelated assets and put them in a pool together, diversification alone, we can mitigate our risk by 80% while keeping our return the same. This is what fund managers look for. They call it alpha or asymmetrical risk. You are trying to find things that have relatively low risk for the return. Let me give you a more practical example. A house flipper. Okay. I have a buddy, he's flipped 300 houses. He's a phenomenal house flipper.
Right.
The average house flip makes about, in America, makes about $65,000. I would guess his average house flip makes like 70, 80, 90,000. Okay. When he flips a house, there's relatively low risk because he's done it so many times. He just knows the market inside and out.
Right.
If I go flip a house, people always make fun of me. Like my family makes fun of me. I'm not very handy. I'm just not a handy guy. Like I'm just not good. I'll just hire somebody else to go. My brother is like building shelves in his garage. He's building the deck outside. One of those people. That's my brother. Me, I'm like, I'm a liability, if I'm trying to build my own deck, I'm just going to go hire a guy. I'll just go hire somebody and I'm not going to do it. So anyways, if Bridger tried to flip a house, a lot more risk. If my buddy Mike tries to flip a house, very low risk, right? Another example I'd give, if maybe me and David, if we're in business together and let's say, some investors looking at, we have medium risk, medium return. And let's say we introduce a third business partner and our third business partner is Jeff Bezos. If you're an outside investor looking at this, you'd say, is it more risky now or less risky? Probably less risky. He's got tons of money, can overcount. He has all the connections in the world. Jeff Bezos, probably going to minimize some risk. What's our chance of return? Down or up? Probably up, like crazy. Jeff Bezos getting involved, like one of the greatest entrepreneurs to ever live. So just by introducing a third business partner, you can create asymmetrical risk in a deal. So long answer to a short question, but we look a lot at risk. Really be honest with yourself. What do I really have asymmetrical risk? Do I have relatively low risk for high return? Would I bet my grandma's money on this thing? You got to be that confident. I love my grandma. Would I bet her life savings on this? Yes. That's how confident you got to be when you go out. You can't just kind of be like, oh, I hope it works. You can't do that. It's got to be so solid. This is a lock. Yeah, there's a chance it fails, but man, I'm putting my own money in. I'm putting everybody I know money's in because this thing is phenomenal. It's going to, we really truly believe the numbers are telling us, everything is telling us this thing is going to, rocket ship. That's how you got to approach it.